Whole Foods is under pressure. I lost $100 million. I decided we're going to shut this thing down and cut our losses. My credibility was greatly damaged. So that was a very dark time. I got a call from the lead director letting me know that there was a movement afoot to have me leave. As you become more and more successful, people, they often want what you have. I looked at him in his eye and I said, we can stop this now. It's not too late. All you have to do is just stand by me. And he said, John, I don't think you should be the leader of Whole Foods any longer. I think the company's outgrown you. I just let it all go and I just went into love space. I went into an intense, joyful, blissful space. So I realized this is my higher purpose. This is what I'm meant to do.
My name is Miki Agrawal, and I am the founder of TUSHY, the modern bidet that washes your butt clean after you poop. And I'm so excited because this is a podcast experiment that I've been wanting to do for a really long time. And today is day one, episode one of podcast journey of the rest of my life. This podcast is called Edge of My Seat. So we all go through shit in our lives, don't we? And it's really fun to hear the stories of what happens to people when they experience the shittiest, darkest, hardest things and how they come out on the other side even more alive, even more in love, even more happy, even brighter. So my first guest for this podcast is John Mackey. He is the founder of Whole Foods Market, built it from nothing to $18 billion a year. And 44 years in the making of creating the #1 natural grocery supermarket in the world. I'm so excited about this episode because John really goes through the dark night of the soul and he really shares these shitty moments and what he did to clean them up, both internally and externally. It's a really inspiring episode, so I'm so excited for you to listen to it. Let's just start by you just thinking about one of the darkest, hardest, like just shittiest moments. Like, and I'm sure, again, so many of those incredible stories are in this book. And just bring me back there. Like, where were you and what was happening?
Well, there are many. And the flood is well told, so I'm not going to go to that one. When we almost died in our...
It was crazy. And that also brought me to tears when the community came and helped clean it up. Exactly. It was so beautiful.
I'm going to go back to one of the coup attempts. There were, ultimately there were 4, possibly 5 coup attempts, and people just basically trying to take me out as a CEO and take over to being the leader.
Of your own company?
Well, the company that I co-created. And, but you know, as you become more and more successful, people, they often want what you have.
Totally.
You've lived through that yourself.
Oh yeah.
So envy is a powerful emotion, although it's usually well disguised. In this case, this is back in the year 2000. And I was most vulnerable then because we had created an internet company. We jumped in on the .com revolution. First it was WholeFoods.com, and then we acquired a mail order vitamin company based in Boulder, Colorado called Amrion. And we combined it together and changed the name to WholePeople.com. And we were back in that day. So you had these incredibly crazy valuations for these startups. There was, Pets.com and Garden.com, and they were just, getting $1 billion valuations, and they didn't have any sales.
Right. Crazy.
Yeah, crazy. So
how is that possible?
And it kind of the word that was out there at that time was, if you don't act now, you're going to be left in the dust.
Right.
It's now or never. I wrote a book called Now or Never. And so we decided we jump in, and I was enthusiastic about it, appealed to my entrepreneurial instincts. So my wife and I, we bought Amrion, we moved, and we rented a big distribution center. I moved to Boulder, and we did this, WholePeople.com. And this was back in the year, we moved there in 1999, and so this is 1999, 2000. So a while back, but Whole Foods is a safer way. Whole Foods has still already been in existence over 22 years. So it's kind of in the middle of the story. Wow. And that was, if you have to realize that people don't understand where the internet business was back then. First of all, there was no Wi-Fi at all.
Crazy.
It was all dial-up modems, very slow.
Yeah.
AOL.
The sound, like.
Yep. Yeah. AOL.com and secondly, there was no plug and play. There's no software as a service. That didn't exist. There was no plug and play internet software.
Right.
There was no Shopify.
Right.
There was no Amazon doing that, no AWS. So everything had to be custom built. First of all, and then second, then there were the tech people were scarce. They were all in the Bay Area, and they were extremely expensive, and you had to build everything from scratch.
And did you guys raise the money for it? Or
What we did is we set up a separate corporation called wholepeople.com that was separate from Whole Foods, so Whole Foods would be shielded from it. And then we raised $30 million in venture capital, and we brought in the intellectual capital and the facility, and we'll just say we operated the business. And pretty early on, I realized we'd made a mistake because it was too expensive to do anything. Everything was so expensive. And the only people that were buying things, so we bought that mail order vitamin company. It still did a lot of business in mail order, but who buys mostly vitamins from mail order catalog?
Right.
Really old people. And these were not early adopters of the internet. So we didn't do much online business with that business, although it still had a good mail order catalog business. And the people that initially were buying these things, we weren't selling very much at all. Hardly anyone was selling very much at all. And it was mostly people that were getting promotions. So, getting all this free stuff. And a lot of tech people were, if you get free stuff, they would be happy to take it, but they had no real commitment to your business or your business model.
Right.
So I realized, and so we had the tech team was in San Francisco, and then we had the rest of the team was in Boulder. And the first thing I realized is, we got to combine. These teams are fighting. So we basically said, we're moving the tech team to Boulder, and only 5 people moved. The rest quit. And they didn't want to leave the Bay Area. Understandable. And they just took other.
And how big was the team back then?
Oh, we probably had about 40 people.
Okay.
And so we didn't have enough the tech people move, but we still got things up and running, and we just weren't doing very much business. And then the valuations, two things were happening. A, Whole Foods valuation was getting killed because we were not a pure play. Back in the day, now the hybrid or the omni-channel is common. But back in that day, no, I invested in Whole Foods because you guys are a supermarket company. I don't want an internet company. I can invest in an internet company like Amazon if I want an internet company.
But even if you were trying to bring food online, that's still a food company.
That was another problem. That business model is difficult because the shipping costs, people want free shipping, and the shipping cost for food is heavy.
Totally.
And so you're at this competitive disadvantage shipping jars of anything, jars of juices or whatever, or bottles of juices, or water or whatever. It's just the business model doesn't pencil out mathematically. So we weren't doing well, and I just realized this thing's not going to succeed, and Whole Foods is under pressure. And so I decided we're going to shut this thing down and cut our losses. So that was a very dark time. I was very vulnerable. We didn't lose much capital on that investment because the venture capitalists put up all the money. They lost everything. My credibility was greatly damaged. I got some nasty articles written about me in the Bay Area tech world. And
how does it make you feel when you receive those? Like when you experience people writing shit about you that's not true, or that's exaggerated, or that's.
Well, of course,
I know what that feels like. It's hard.
It's painful, of course. And I remember one of the reporters that wrote I got in an email argument with him about, your facts are really wrong, and he didn't care. He wanted to make me look like a shit, and he succeeded in doing so. And then, so we closed that down. And then it was like, we got this big distribution center. We got this vitamin company. And I realized I got to move back to Austin. And so we had to get what we could get for Amriano. It ended up being their business was falling off. They didn't have any internet business. Their customers were dying off. The mail order business was a who does anything in mail order today? It was a dying, and so we sold it. And all in all, the losses between selling Amrion, the losses from closing distribution center down, et cetera, were about $100 million.
Damn.
So that was on my thing. So I lost $100 million. It's a chapter in the book called The $100 Million Mistake.
Wow.
And that made me very vulnerable, though. And as I moved back to Austin from Boulder and took the reins at Whole Foods again, I had promoted, and that's why it was such a difficult time for me, because Chris Hitt, who'd been my president and a close friend, I brought Chris in, and he was with the company
years,
for
right?
16 years. He was one of my closest friends. And I got a call that from the lead director letting me know that there was a movement afoot to have me leave. So,
And what was the reason?
well, I was a
Oh, the
bad
$100
leader. I
million
lost $100 million. The .com had failed.
You got to swing.
My acquisition at Amrion had failed, and I mean, it's like somebody has to take responsibility. I
Right.
was ultimately responsible. So, but I'd also built this great business, $1 billion business. Whole Foods was at 1.6 billion in sales at that time, and profitable and doing very well. So I had that in my plus column. I might say, in the
That's kind of
debit
big.
column. But the thing that was hard is that I asked Chris to stand by me. Chris, stand by me. He says, John, I think you need to leave the company. And I said, well, I mean, you supported those merger. You supported everything we've done. You supported it too. And he said, not really. I just went along with you. And so he was distancing himself from me. And because it was obvious Chris wanted to take my job. It was a
Everyone thinks
coup
they can
attempt.
do a better job than you, right? I
Well,
remember that
they
line.
do. And that's because everybody thinks they would do things a little differently. They take for granted what you're doing well, and they think they could do it better. And I found that to be true every step of the way, even to the point where, I built the business doing, $16 billion, and there's people thinking that they could do it better. So I felt a deep sense of betrayal that I loved Chris, and I asked him to stand by me. And the reason this is such a good story is that I couldn't get him. I said, let's at least, the board calls a meeting to bring the whole E team into Fort Lauderdale to have a meeting to decide what to do, whether for me to leave or not. And each of the leaders was going to present their case. So I asked Chris to stand by me, and he wouldn't do it. And then I asked him to at least meet with me, and he said he didn't want to do that either. But I get there early, and I've got a morning to kill. I'm not talking to the board until the afternoon, so I do what I always do when I'm visiting a city, is I go to our stores. So I went to our Fort Lauderdale store.
And runs into him.
Well, the first thing happened was that I went into a very strong altered state of consciousness,
Oh, yeah.
because I was walking around seeing how beautiful our store was. And I had team members that were coming up to me smiling and saying how much they loved Whole Foods. Customers were talking to me. And I just went into this, I just let it all go. And I just went into love space. I went into an intense, joyful, blissful space. So I realized this is my higher purpose. This is what I'm meant to do.
And when that flip happens, when you're kind of in this nervous state and going, and then receiving love from around you, and then filling yourself up with love, what is that switch? Like, how can other people have that happen in these kinds of
Good
scary
question. And
moments?
I don't know. When I think back at what I did, I just basically, it's there all the time. You got to let it in. But I think it was just being in the store and just loving what I had helped create, and I didn't want to lose it. And I loved Whole Foods. I still love Whole Foods. Whole Foods is my baby. I'll always love it. You'll always love your children, even when they get older.
Yeah.
And I love Whole Foods, and I was loving it that day, and I did not want to lose it. Didn't want to lose. They were going to take my baby away from me, and I didn't want that. And so I had some fear. But then, as I was seeing how beautiful it was, my heart just opened up. It said, "I love you. You're so beautiful. I love the customers. I love the team members. I loved how beautiful our produce was, and just the overall vibe and feel of the store." And so I went in this altered state. Then I ran into Chris, who didn't know I was going to be there. And I asked him if I put my arm on his shoulder and asked him if we could go talk. And he didn't want to, but we got into a store team leader's office and closed the door. And I looked at him in his eye and I said, "Chris, we've been a great team for 16 years. We can stop this now. It's not too late. All you have to do is just stand by me." And he said, "John, I don't think you should be the leader of Whole Foods any longer. I think the company's outgrown you." And I said, "You think you're the right guy?" And he said, "I don't know if the board will choose me, but and I said, "Well, if they did choose you, would you accept it?" And he said, "Yes." And so I said, okay, but Chris, once we go talk to the board, there's no going back. If you don't win, then I'm going to have to ask you to leave the company because I can't work with you. The trust is broken. You know, I've trusted you with so much, and I've frankly given you so much. And he said, well, we'll see what the board says.
How did that make you feel?
The important thing here is that Chris was in this very angry space, very judgmental, angry space. He was definitely not in a love space. And he told me, he says, John, you deserve to leave this company with honor. But if you don't voluntarily step down, you're going to get thrown out on your ass. And I said, I don't think you have the votes. And he said, I guess we'll find out. And that was the end of that meeting.
Wow.
But so I went into the meeting with the board.
But pause, before you even went into the meeting, what was the feeling like walking out of that room from Chris, who's been with you for 16 years, and now you felt this betrayal? How did you stay in the love space?
I didn't ever leave the love space.
Yeah,
I was in the love space the whole time.
Yeah.
I was I think in the book I described that Chris hesitated. I could see that he hesitated. I made an appeal to him and I said, we're brothers and we've done this together and at 16 years you've worked with me and we can keep doing it. And then he hardened. He hardened, but I didn't. I was still in my heart. I saw the ring of power. He wanted that ring of power, and he really wanted it.
Yeah.
He lusted after it. So I stayed in that state, and I went into the board meeting.
How many people were in the room?
The whole board was in the room, so about, 7 or 8 people.
And so you went alone?
Yes.
In front of 7 or 8 people?
Yeah. So then Chris had already gone and talked to the board. And
did you have a presentation or did you just talk?
I had a presentation that was in my mind.
Wow.
And I'd gone over it. And that presentation was just to kind of review the board, where we'd come from, what happened in Boulder, where we're going in the future, and why I was the right leader to stay. But the main thing was I was in this total love space. If they didn't choose me, I was okay with that. I wasn't afraid at all. I was totally in my heart.
For anyone listening or watching, how can someone who is so in a fear state of potentially losing their job, losing their baby that they built for, at this point, was how many years? It had been 30.
No, let's see. This was 2000. So it'd been 22 years.
22 years, yeah, 22 years. Building something 22 years, and they're afraid. How can one and meet an adversary who you've been friends with and they betraying you and still stay in the love space? Like,
I remembered something, and this is the tip I will give you. We always have a choice. We have a choice to either contract into fear or expand into love. We have that choice every moment. And you know what? Even if you make the choice to contract into fear in one moment, if you become conscious of what you're doing, you can choose again. You can choose to expand back into love. So it was I don't know if I could have pulled it off if I hadn't been in the store that day.
Right.
I just loved everyone I met. I love the team members. I remember I was touring the store with the regional president, Juan Nunez, and I just said, Juan, I don't know if they're going to pick me. And I told him what was going on. I don't know if they're going to pick me. And he says, oh, John, they're going to pick you. They're not going to put Chris Hitt in charge. They're going to pick you. Don't even worry about it. He was so sure, and which I appreciate that about Juan.
Of course. But you're also like the heart and soul of the entire story, and so to let that.
I believe is that we kind of create our own realities.
Yeah.
If I'd gone into an angry fear space. And I'd gone into that board meeting that way, I might not have been chosen. I really think I was so relaxed, so confident, so full of love. I had a whole plan for what Whole Foods was going to do.
So what did you say in the meeting?
Do you know sometimes when you do a speech?
And you forget it. Yeah, you're blacked out.
When you're really in
flow.
the moment, when you're in the flow state.
Yeah, you black out.
You're not watching yourself.
Totally.
So I know what people told me that were in the meeting later, right? So and I will tell you, I actually wanted to find out kind of what happened. So over the next several years, as time, the board didn't want to tell me anything. It was all hush hush.
Right.
But I would take out a director to dinner one-on-one and get him to drink a couple of glasses of wine. And then I'd ask questions. And I pretty much got what happened out over time.
What did they say?
Well, they said my talk was great. I was confident. I was relaxed. I wasn't afraid. And I put forth this vision that they got excited about. They said, but John, when Chris went in, he was so angry at you. He went on like a 30-minute rant about everything that was wrong with you and your leadership. And as one of the directors told me, he said, well, because he went in before I did, he says, we weren't sure if we wanted to keep you as the CEO, but we sure weren't going to put Chris in as CEO.
Right.
He was too angry.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't be an effective CEO because of that anger. So,
So he selected you.
But I got one thing that happened in there that's very important is that all my mentors were gone at this time. I make an emphasis of this. My dad, who'd been my mentor, he was being lost to me to Alzheimer's disease at that point. And my Joan Claude, who'd been an older man that I looked for advice, he had just died just in December, just
Will's dad.
Couple of months. Yes, Will and Andy's dad, just before this board meeting. So I didn't have Joan Claude. I had peers, but I didn't have any, older people I could seek advice from. And this ended up being catalytic for me because it's like one of the things that came out of this whole process for me was that's when I became a conscious leader. I made the decision at that point, I am going to grow as a human being. I cannot stay the way I am. I need a new relationship with the board. I need to cultivate the board. I need to develop deeper relationships with them. I think up to that point, I had always been, I was like a good strategist and good at seeing how things fit together and building a team and getting great people to work there. But I didn't always lead as much as I needed to lead by example. Craig Weller, who'd been one of the co-founders of the company, was 8 years older than me. I looked up to Craig. He always led by example. And it became very clear to me, I have to become Craig Weller. I have to internalize him. I had to begin to lead by example. I had to be the change I wanted to see at Whole Foods. So this accelerated my own growth as a leader.
Right. So that's
evolve or die. I needed to evolve. The board and this is important. I didn't even include this in the book. So this is I did a breath work after I had that board meeting, and in the breath work, I was asking this question about, what do I need to do to be a leader at Whole Foods? And what came back in that breath work time and time again, I got a series of questions. Are you willing to do this? And the answer I kept giving was, yes, I am. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Because the message my soul was giving me, if you don't grow, Whole Foods are going to be taken away from you and put into somebody else's hands. You have to grow. You have to become a deeper, more spiritual being in business. You have to be the kind of change that you wish to see in the world. That got very clear to me. Not to say that I executed that perfectly. I certainly had lots of mistakes and problems going forward after that point. But I noticed, and I can look back on it, that I definitely had accelerated growth as a leader.
How did you do that? What steps did you take? Like what actual work did you do internally to get you to become a conscious leader?
The most important thing you can do is of course, I still did my spiritual practices, but the most important thing I did was I just wanted to be, I had a high intentionality. I wanted to be a better leader. So I started to do some things that I was uncomfortable doing. I'm more of an introvert. So getting out there and being the rah-rah guy and pumping people up and that doesn't come natural to me. But I developed a skill set where I can do that. I'm very comfortable now speaking publicly, connecting with people in almost any situation. I kind of, if you practice something, you get better at it. Yeah. So I developed a more extroverted side of myself. Also, a lot of people think I'm an extrovert, but I'm not. I'm an introvert who's learned extrovert skills.
I would say also your vulnerability, that's power. Like most leaders at the level of, play that you're playing, the game that you're playing, there's very little vulnerability. And I feel like you're strong and empowered, and there's still this level of humility around like, I could be better. And these are the places where I was sad or hurt or.
There's a paradox here. The paradox is if you are completely defenseless, you are invulnerable.
Right. Right.
Just the opposite of what people think. They think they have to defend themselves. but defending yourself shows that you feel that you're weak, that you need defense.
Huh.
And so when you are completely defenseless, when you are not afraid of anything, bring it on. I'm open.
Right.
In complete openness, you basically can no longer be hurt.
Huh. Totally. It's that saying we say, like, what's coming will come and we'll meet it when it does. And it's just this trust of just not.
And knowing that whatever comes, what you are and who you are is enough.
Beautiful. Amazing.
That you'll find a way.
So as all of this, was kind of concluding in this sort of this dark night of the soul moment where your friend and colleague was, betraying you in this moment, and he said, no, I'm not going to back you. How did that make you, like, what kind of, did you have to do some internal work to trust again, or trust your coworkers? Or did it affect other relationships as a result? And what did you do to heal that?
I became more conscious of how seductive power is to many people. And so I was a little bit more conscious, a little more vigilant about that. It's probably this is not talked about in the book. I just, the book's 400 pages and it could have easily been 1,000. So, but Chris and I did heal our relationship.
You did?
Absolutely. Chris is in the Hall of Fame at Whole Foods Market. And well, sure, he made a great contribution to our business. He deserved to be in the Hall of Fame. He wrote our mission statement. Chris was a remarkably, he's a Harvard graduate, remarkably intelligent man, loved Whole Foods. I mean, he did some really good work while he was there. And so I visited him and asked for his forgiveness.
Wow. And what did he say?
He forgave me.
Did he ask for, did you?
I had already forgiven him.
Okay.
He didn't ask for forgiveness, but I'd already forgiven him. This is a very important life lesson, spiritual lesson. If you hold on to grievances, all you're doing is hurting yourself.
Totally.
You're like, they say it's like drinking a poison you want the other person to drink because it just eats away at your soul.
Yeah.
So letting go of all your grievances. I mean, and that part of that is being able to be empathetic with. Chris really did believe he would be better than me. And he was older. He was a Harvard graduate. He had a master's in public health, also from Harvard. He had a tremendous self-confidence. He really felt like he was better for this than me. And so he really, in his own mind, Chris felt like he was doing something for Whole Foods that needed to be done. He was sacrificing. He knew he was sacrificing the friendship for the good of the company.
Wow.
That's what he believed. Now, and I believe he sincerely believed that. I do think he really wanted that job. And so one way to forgive is to put yourself in the other person's place and try to understand where they were coming from, where their feelings were.
It's
that
interesting.
made it easier.
Yeah, it's interesting because as you know, because you were so right there with me when I went through my own version of betrayal, dark night of the soul, while I was pregnant, no less. And I remember I did an ayahuasca ceremony during this kind of after, not while I was pregnant, after I gave birth.
That would explain a lot of things about him.
After I gave birth, when he was like 6 months old, I did an ayahuasca ceremony, and this woman and some of these women came up, who were, who really I felt a deep betrayal from. And they turned into angel obstacle creators for me.
This was on the journey.
When I was on the journey, where it was like they became angels, and it was like, wow, like I have angels helping me grow and helping like create obstacles and learn like about betrayal and anger and sadness and like those deeper and darker feelings I wouldn't have experienced in this one short and precious life. And so now I get to access, I gained access to those feelings, and I'm so much better for it. And so I wonder, from your perspective, going through something like this, did it expand your emotional capacity to then find empathy for others who are going through something similar?
I mean, my metaphysics are very different than most people's. So I really do believe that this is a dream.
Yeah.
And that the interesting thing about a dream, when you go to sleep and you have dreams, you're the dreamer, right?
Right.
Who are all those other characters in the dream? They're yours too. You're creating those other characters.
Huh.
I think that we do the same thing here.
Mm.
That we are our projections of anger and fear they show up in the characters than this particular dream, and then we attack it out there and judge it out there. And these are qualities within our own being. So remember how you said that in the ayahuasca journey that they turned into angels?
Yeah.
You create both the devils and the angels.
Yeah.
So once you see that when you're attacking someone, this is a part of yourself you haven't completely accepted yet. So that's why forgiveness is such a powerful thing. To forgive is to begin to free yourself from those judgments, anger, guilt, hate. They will all show up in your waking dream that we think we're awake in, but we're still actually at some level still sleeping. So, and of course, eventually as we wake up, we wake deeper and deeper into love. Our dreams get happier and happier. I can tell you that for the most part, I'm living in this incredibly happy dream.
Amazing.
Because if you love as my wife has taught me, just love everyone all the time. Then life becomes a lot simpler.
It's true.
You don't have to decide, I'm going to love Miki. I'm not going to love these guys. But if you just say, I'm going to love everyone, even people that you want to judge and attack, then you're liberated to have a much happier dream.
But what if it's like the activist investors, like in your book, who are trying to, take your company and just sell it for parts? And how do you love them when you feel like they're part of me too? Yeah. That's
a part of me being put, they're being put out there for me. Think of it as like a spiritual growth opportunity. If you can love those activists, that's tough. And you want to judge and attack, and you want to there's this desire to have this righteous anger. I really am a victim here. These are really horrible people, and somebody's got to stop them. I'm going to stop them.
But didn't you also have to bristle up to do that in order to keep your company alive, to actually be the warrior, in addition to there is that part of you that's the warrior, and there's a part of you that's the lover. But the warrior, I feel like, came forward several times to save the company, to prevent these coups. So yes, you went in with love, but there was this warrior energy.
I went into love, but I still think that was part of what manifested in the world because of my own unhealed parts of my being. That's what showed up for me. So if you just here's a simpler way to think about it. Every opportunity, every interaction is an opportunity to love and to heal, no matter who it is. Now, did I handle that situation with Jana Partners? No, I went into a fear space. I was scared. I really thought that it could take the company away. But I kept asking a very important spiritual question. That's another dark night of the soul. I chose the coup, but this one would have been a good one to talk about too.
Yeah.
I made a choice, which was and the chapters evolve or die. I thought this was a big challenge to both Whole Foods and me. What is a win-win-win solution?
Yeah.
What's the best thing for all of the stakeholders, the best thing for our customers, the best thing for our team members, our suppliers, our investors, our community? And, frankly, I looked at all different things. We thought about going private. We thought about fighting Jana. We thought about just capitulating to them. We asked Warren Buffett, he wanted to buy Whole Foods, and he didn't.
He's like, I'm not a grocer.
Well, he said, I own Dairy Queen. It's not a good, it's not a good brand. It's not a good brand fit.
Yeah.
But then I woke up one morning, and I just woke up. Sometimes you just wake up and you see an answer, because I've been thinking about it for a few weeks, what's the win-win-win? And it was, what about Amazon? That was I just woke up with the question, what about Amazon? And that proved to be, in the circumstances, the best win-win-win solution available to us.
How did they even see that they could be a grocer? Were they interested?
They were already trying to be a grocer with, they had their Amazon Fresh on delivery. And we didn't know it at the time, but Amazon was thinking about getting more into physical retail, period, particularly physical grocery. And so I don't think they were actually looking for Whole Foods per se, but when we expressed an interest, they thought, wow, this could really accelerate our grocery business.
Right.
And Whole Foods has got a lot of skill sets that could help our Amazon Fresh business. So, I don't really believe in coincidences, but the year before, I had met Jeff Bezos at this Microsoft CEO summit, where I met a lot of really super famous CEOs. I was kind of starstruck a little bit, but
They were probably starstruck with you too.
I don't know about that. But I hit it off with Jeff there. We did a panel together, just the two of us, and we were talking after. And then at a mixer, I was talking to him about scuba diving. He likes to dive, and we were talking about science fiction books because we both like that, and we found we had some common interest. And I, of course, really admire Jeff, and I think he's one of the great entrepreneurs of this particular age. And what he's done with Amazon is simply unbelievably phenomenal. So I liked him, had a good connection with him. I liked him on the panel. And so then when the Amazon thing came up, I thought, and Jeff had told me, he said, John, let's get together and talk about Whole Foods and Amazon. And I thought, okay. I said, sure. And I thought he'd follow up, but he never did. And so then this was only a year later that this all was coming down.
So crazy how I remember we went to the dim sum place after going to see, what's the show?
Hamilton? Yeah.
And we went to that Asian place and you're like, I have news.
Yes.
And that's when you went on the date with Jeff Bezos and you guys kind of fell in love.
Yeah.
Companies fell in love. I remember that story.
Yeah, that's detailed pretty deeply in the book.
Yes. It was so fun to read because I felt like I was kind of part of that moment a little bit.
One of the questions I always get now, and I'll get it a lot on this book tour, is like, do you regret selling Whole Foods to Amazon?
Yeah.
And the answer is,
it's also in the book, but
I regret the circumstances that made that the best solution to our challenges.
Yeah.
Because I also outlined what I think we should have done back when we were coming out of the 2008, 2009 Great Recession.
And also
that was a mistake that we made. And if we hadn't made that mistake, I don't think we'd have ever been vulnerable.
And also it was beautiful to read in your book was the vulnerability that you had around the hurt you felt by them, like after 44 years of running Whole Foods, they weren't necessarily there to receive your feedback or your thoughts or your based on your experience.
Some of them were. So just, it's not everyone was.
Right.
Some were, but some were not.
Yeah, but for you to actually process that disappointment or that hurt.
I wasn't even aware of it.
Until you did the MDMA.
And I did the guided journey. I did this guided journey, a 5-day guided journey actually by myself. I'm trying to get into this. I want to go deeper into love. And then I became aware of blocks. It was the blocks that were keeping me from experiencing more love. So I had to remove the blocks. And one of the blocks that came up in ceremony was I had anger towards Amazon. I wasn't even conscious that I did. And it was like, well, what am I angry about? And so those are some of the things I describe in the book. And but then I processed that and let it all go. I let it all go.
It was beautiful to read.
And in fact, now I've, part of you're writing your own narrative of your own life.
Yeah.
And so what I realized, Amazon was the perfect solution also for me, because then I could retire from Whole Foods.
Yeah.
And
trust them.
And now I can do Love Life. And if that hadn't come along, would I have ever done Love Life?
Right.
I may not have. And it was a dream that I've had for a long time. But now that Whole Foods is in very good leadership hands, and I've moved on. This book is in fact, I wrote this book as my closing. It's my final closing thing with Whole Foods.
Yeah.
It's my final gift to Whole Foods. I dedicate it to all team members, past, present, and future. And now I can, I'm done completely.
It's like bookended now, literally bookended. Now you can go on.
I'm going to be I'm getting inducted into the Whole Foods Hall of Fame in just 2 weeks.
Where?
In Chicago.
Oh,
and
chills.
I'm giving a book to every team member that's going to be there. 600 people.
That's they're gonna freak out over this book. So
I hope they don't really freak out. I hope Amazon doesn't freak out.
No, in a good way. In a good way. They're gonna be everyone's gonna be so inspired because it's so honest. It's so rare to read something that's so vulnerable and so honest and so true. And even when naming names, it's just true. It's just true, and it's just what happened. And it's not like there's nothing wrong. It just happened, and that's from your perspective. I think that's actually very, very brave and beautiful. What are some of your practices to stay high when others go low? Like in the media, because I know, again, like I've experienced that, and I, have spent sometime in the very beginning of like my own experience of that, of that trauma, where I would write rebuttals and then almost send it to the New York Times and then not.
That's a good practice, actually.
Oh, just writing it and then not sending it. Yeah. Yeah. So I did so many of those like versions of just like, but this is not true. This is what happened. And then I would write like, more like grounded pieces, and then I just didn't send any of them.
Right.
But
it helps you get conscious of to your blocks, so to speak, to the presence of love. And then by not sending them out, you don't create more controversy, right? There are many things I wish I could take back that I've said or done over the years.
Right.
And so the first thing in answer to your question is that I don't always succeed. I do sometimes forget. But the most important thing is to realize that even if you make a mistake, you can choose again in the next moment. The past doesn't exist.
Right.
And so if you make a mistake and you say something you regret, try to clear it. Try to ask for forgiveness. Try to let it go. And then in the next moment, choose love. You can choose love in the next moment. And you're always free to do that. You don't have to go into the drama. Once you become conscious that you're in the drama, you can back up and get out of it.
It's so great. I just was brought back. I had a deja vu moment when you came to, while you're going through this Amazon merger, you still came over to my house in the church. I don't remember that. And we did an 8-minute breath work together, breathing practice before I had the crazy interview with New York Magazine. We wrote the takedown piece.
Yeah.
And you were it was such a grounding force. And I feel like that was the moment where you were teaching me how to stay high when others were going low, and just to remember your breath.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you this is a really good one too.
Yeah.
So if you're conscious that you may be going into a difficult situation where you may be challenged, where you may be attacked and criticized, hey, I'm going to be on a book tour. It's going to happen a lot. So because and reading my book, I like to play games.
Yeah. So
I gamify it. What do you mean you gamify it? It's like my job is to lift the energy so much. So oftentimes there's going to be negative energy. I did this podcast earlier today, in fact, where, the guy's a little bit more, I'm not going to tell you who he is, but he was more pessimistic about the future, seeing lots of kind of problems. And so my job was to take his energy up to a higher place, to get him out of his down spot. His job, the game, and he's trying to take me down to go into fear. I'm trying to take him into love. He's trying to take me into fear. That's the game. And if the other party manages to get you angry and judgmental or fearful or feeling guilty, they guilt trip you, then you've lost the game.
Right.
Your job is to stay centered and balanced and clear and be so loving and so positive that they surrender and they go higher.
It's so interesting because the practice of like resolving conflict that I've worked on with my love coach, Annie, she talks about how when by jumping, it's about jumping into each other's frames. And it's just like, I get to jump in your frame, you get to jump into my frame. And in that process, you're just like, oh, I wonder what it's like to be a John Mackey. And then for you, it's like, I wonder what it's like to be a Miki. And then the game is who can resolve faster. Who is the first person who can jump into the other person's frame first?
Oh, great.
Which
I love that.
I think is really fun
really
practice.
good practice.
Yeah, because then you're just like, and you win that game, which makes it for people who are competitive like us, you want to win the game.
A similar thing to that, one of my friends, a woman named Stephanie Lepp, and Stephanie has something she calls the anti-debate. So an anti-debate, what happens when people get together for a debate is they try to, put the other person down.
Right.
They try to say their views are crazy and stupid. And so in the anti-debate, your job is to so understand the other person's perspective that you can explain it to the audience better than they can.
Totally.
And then after you do that, you can say, but what about this? Does your what you're saying account for this? And what happens if both are doing that is the whole problem gets framed up in a way
that's collaborative.
Yeah. And solutions win-win-win solutions begin to emerge from an anti-debate.
I love
Instead
that.
of one winning and somebody else losing, you're reframing it to how do we find a way for us all to win?
Brilliant.
I
I
think it's
love
brilliant.
that.
I think it's brilliant.
I think it's brilliant.
Stephanie's pretty brilliant. You like her, by the way.
Yeah.
She's kind of like you.
Oh yeah.
Passionate, likes to wear hats.
Oh great.
Very positive.
Okay, so I think we'll conclude by just by asking the question, because I feel like there's so many feelings that exist inside of us at all times. I find like this book just showed your texturedness and how full spectrum you are, and the story is it's filled with love, with coups, with ups and downs of entrepreneurship, with LSD journeys, with MDMA,
Adventures, baby.
Adventure. It's just filled with just all of the experiences of life, the full spectrum. And part of the question I have is, yes, we all want to just feel all-encompassing love, and that is such a beautiful through line of this book is expand into love. But I wonder also how it's a simultaneity. It's simultaneously you can feel love and you can feel strength and you can feel all the different feelings, fear and anger simultaneously, and that's okay too. But you choose love externally, but you still feel it all. I wonder, because to me, this book is it's an expansion into love, but it's a simultaneous, multi-complex feeling journey. What are your thoughts on that, where multiple feelings can exist at the same time?
I think there's lots of different variations, but there's really only two fundamental emotions: love and fear. And you're in one or the other. I don't think you can be both. Yeah. So when you remove the barriers, love is what's there. Now, love is, it's not just being in bliss. It's just being. Just being in the moment is amazing. So beautiful. It's so I don't know if you can have judgment, anger, fear, and guilt and love all mixed together.
Right.
I don't think.
I guess for you, it's a journey always back to love.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a journey. And the great thing is that even if you forget, you don't forget forever.
Right.
You can
Just
remember.
a moment. Yeah.
And maybe it's days, maybe it's weeks, maybe it could even be years.
Yeah.
But then it's like, oh yeah, I remember. It's all about love.
Right. When you're in it. Genuinely, the whole story is truly, I would say, at the top of the best books I've read. And I'm not saying that because he's sitting right in front of me. I've read so many books, so many founder stories. And this one just speaks to my heart because it's literally the soup of all of the things that are important in life, which end in love. So I'm so freaking proud of you. This is so epic. And yeah, I can't wait for everyone to hear your whole story. So thank you, John.
So much,
I
Miki.
love you.
I love you too.
I love you very much. So thanks for checking out the show. My name is Miki Agrawal again. I'm the founder of HelloTushy.com, the modern bidet that washes your butt clean after you poop. John and I talked through a lot of stuff today, and I hope you got some really epic shit out of it and some tools to really find love amidst it all, even in the shit. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you on our next episode 2 of Edge of My Seat.